You Booked It, episode 17. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world. I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainers 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to be a successful entertainer. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainers. We are here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating and review. And to show our appreciation for your, fingers crossed, 5-star rating and review, I will give you a shout out on an upcoming episode. And now, let's do this. All right, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Brittni Trippi. Brittni, are you ready for this?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Brittni is originally from Florida and began dancing at age 7. By the time she graduated from the Osceola County School for the Arts, she had already danced with the Orlando Ballet, as well as at all of the major theme parks in the area. In 2009, Brittni made it to Vegas Week on So You Think You Can Dance, and although she did not ultimately make it into the top 20, she decided to permanently relocate to Vegas 6 months later. Since moving to Vegas, Brittni's credits include a variety of shows such as Tournament of Kings, Robin Anton's Pussycat Dolls, and Zombie Burlesque. Brittni has also worked for Cirque du Soleil for 6 years in various shows, including Light, Chris Angel's Believe, and is currently in Zumanity at New York, New York. Brittni is also an accomplished choreographer. Her choreography and direction work has been enjoyed by audiences at Broadway Bears, Golden Rainbow, Ribbon of Life, Fremont Street, and even Cirque du Soleil. Brittni, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, who you are, where you're from, what you're currently calling home, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
Awesome. So I am Brittni Trippi, and like you mentioned, I am originally from Florida. I was born in Hollywood, Florida, but I grew up in the Orlando Kissimmee area, and I spent most of my summers in Miami, where I was actually babysat by drag queens, which had a big influence on my life.
Really?
Yeah. I always joke, and people are like, "No, you didn't." I was like, "No, I did." Like, grew up in that scene. My aunt and my grandma lived down there, so when they were at work, I had babysitters that were drag queens, which was kind of cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so I currently live in Las Vegas, and next month on July 10th, I will be celebrating my 10-year anniversary here, which is crazy to me. I can't believe it. But
Absolutely.
yeah. And then, so I dance professionally. I teach a lot around town. I currently teach in Millennium. I teach heels. I teach jazz, street jazz. I used to be a ballerina, so I started teaching ballet originally, and that kind of, I always joke, I traded my pointe shoes for heels. But I choreograph, I direct, I manage a variety of gigs and all that good stuff around town.
Fantastic. I love it. Thanks for filling in the gaps. Well, let's move on to the next section here. And look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with our listeners?
So this is a hard one. I wanted to be silly and say my senior quote in high school, which was "Don't be tripping on Trippy." But someone gave me that as like a nickname one day, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." But I had to think about this, and I'm combining two into one because they're the same thing but a little bit different. But
Perfect.
I truly it's something I live by. But it is, everything happens for a reason, and you meet everyone for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
You're right. Those two absolutely do go together. And I guess how has that quote or that combination of quotes applied to your life and your career?
Coming out of graduating high school and all that, I felt like everyone was like, you must be on this path of life and it has to be structured this way. And when things didn't go the the way I wanted, or something stopped me from getting to the next level, I used to stress out about it a lot and be like, why me? What's going on? I'm not supposed to do this. I'm supposed to get this job. I'm good enough for this. But it's really taught me to not sweat the small stuff. And there is a reason for everything that happens, good, bad, and different. There's a lesson to be learned. Those people that you meet in your life, they're there for a reason. Someone came into your life to teach you something, maybe to be there for you, to be that comfort for you, or maybe just to like, they're supposed to be there for a little bit, teach you to grow, and then they move on. So it's really taught me to accept. I always say accept it, acknowledge it, and move on with your life. Don't get too complex in the situation and start to stress yourself out, especially with like what's going on now with COVID. It's taught me, you know what, it's out of my control, I can't do anything, but let's focus on what I can do and what makes me happy and go from there.
Absolutely. And I think it's very easy, especially when we go down those Instagram rabbit
Oh
holes or
yeah.
Facebook rabbit hole, to get caught up in a lot of negativity. And it's not to say that a lot of what we're reading or seeing doesn't have a lot of value, but it can certainly distract and become actually a detriment, I think, sometimes to
Completely.
where we're trying to get to and losing focus.
Completely. And I've never, my life, when I look at it, I've never had anything handed to me. I've always had to work for what I've wanted. It's never been like you audition for a show on the first time and you get it. It's like, hey, there's a reason why you didn't get it right now. You're supposed to be doing something else. And like I said, when I was younger, I used to get so frustrated. And now, even with like last year, I tore my labrum in my shoulder and I didn't freak out about it. I was like, you know what? It's teaching me a lesson. Let's see what it is. What am I supposed to learn? And honest to God, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have ended up in the path where I am, where I'm a part-time manager for a little studio for Soul Cycle. And then I also have been managing and choreographing for a whole different company, Beluscious, and it's taught me and helped me grow so much. And if it wasn't for that small little injury, like completely changing my life pattern, like it would have never happened. I would have been on that same track. So yeah, it's a good quote to live by.
For sure. Like you said, everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's move on to this next section now. So, Brittni, you are an entertainer. I am an entertainer. And I think you'd agree that the entertainment industry is one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries that either of us know about. And you know as well as I that to create and to have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, it takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, of course, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being on stage, being in front of those audiences, there is also your fair share of obstacles and challenges and failures that we're inevitably going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge or obstacle or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
For me, it's kind of one major thing that has happened to me ever since I was 10 years old. I can remember this, but I've been plagued with injury. My body was not built to be a dancer. I am hypermobile, which I'm extremely flexible, but things will pop out of place and I don't have that strength behind it that you should as a dancer. And I learned that the hard way. And I am a stubborn Scorpio through and through. And even though doctors told me, you know what, maybe you should think a different career path and this, that, and the other, I was like, no, I'm going to be a dancer. I'm going to be a dancer. And I've, like I said, since 10 years old, I started with shin splints. I went into other things. I broke my foot when I was 15. I had to have surgery to get it removed. For some people, that would be the end of dancing. And I didn't even really start my career then. But then I've had 2 stomach surgeries. Like I said, last year, I tore my labrum in my shoulder. I've had back issues and this, that, and the other. And I've still learned how to adapt from that. It's taught me to strength train properly and condition my body if I want to keep doing this. And I have to put in that hard work and dedication. My body is my tool and my craft, and I want to keep going and keep pushing. So I have to put in what I want to get out of it. So injury has definitely been that big obstacle that I always am aware of. And like I said, I learned to accept it, acknowledge it, and move on.
Absolutely. And now your career is continuing to evolve and move into even different and fulfilling in different ways, I'm sure, for you.
Completely. It's actually taught me, like, I look back at the things I used to do when I was a teenager and younger in competition days, and I'm like, oh my God, please don't do that. But it's actually taught me to be a more mature and evolved dancer with that conditioning and acknowledgement of my body and how it functions, to not injure it in the future and not to mask it with like pain meds and all that good stuff, which I used to do when I was younger and just be like, put me in, coach, I'm fine. Now I'm like, let me feel that pain so I don't like go to that extreme anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to the next section now, to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That moment in time that you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
So this was really hard, and I actually called my mom to be like, hey, do you remember this like at all? But so I grew up in a very artistic family. My dad was a singer. He traveled the world with his own little band, and he was originally in Spiral Staircase, and then he broke off and did his own band. And so I grew up in that environment of seeing my dad always perform and being around that. And ever since I was little, when I was a baby, I used to perform around the family or whatnot. I remember very vividly, anytime someone was watching Sound of Music, I would grab my suitcase and hat, and when it was I Have Confidence and she starts singing that, I literally would parade around the house and do my own little show around the house of like, I have confidence. And when Beauty and the Beast came out, it was one of my favorite movies ever. I think I was 2 or 3 at the time, and I would always push my way to the end of the seats and start doing my own little kick line. And I just always wanted to be a performer. My dad would bring me on stage to dance a little bit and all that good stuff. And when I was 7, I started really taking lessons. I started with ballet and then went into jazz and tap and all that good stuff. But I think it was just embedded at me from a young age. But I do remember when I was 7, I was 7 years old. I had only been taking ballet. My dad was working at Disney at the time and found out, I don't remember how, but somehow, that they were auditioning kids to dance on the castle for the castle show for like Easter or Christmas or something like that. And they were like, let's just have her go to the audition. Like, my parents never pushed me to dance or anything like that. It was always I wanted to do it. But I remember going to that audition and I made it all the way to the end. And it was, like I said, I had only ever taken ballet. I didn't even know what a bell kick was. And I remember trying to figure it out, like when they were teaching the combo. And I made it to the final 2 groups, and one group got hired and my group didn't. But I think it was that moment I was like, wow, I'm good at this. I can do this. There's something embedded in me that I can do this for a living and get paid, and this is awesome. And I was a baby back then, and I think it's just always been in my blood and the environment that I've been in. And I remember being 13. It was like the first week at Orlando Ballet Summer Intensive, and I went to my mom and I said, I want to be a ballerina. And from that moment on, I was going to get into a ballet company. That was the path I was going to go. I'm going to be a professional dancer. And it's kind of taken its turns and twists and all that good stuff. But like I said, I think I was just born with it. It was just in my blood.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned The Sound of Music. The amount of people
Yes.
that are approximately our age, it blows my mind. It is such this iconic movie that I hear come up all the time.
Yeah, I was really lucky that my mom was just artsy and eclectic, and my dad was that singer, and they just brought me up in that musical element of immersing me in musicals, like even a chorus line when I was young and I couldn't understand really what was behind it, but just immersing me in so many different cultures and musicals, Sound of Music, and different genres of music. Like, I am such an old school rock and roll fan, like Rolling Stones and Blood, Sweat and Tears and all that, like Janis Joplin. It's thanks to my dad. Like, and there's a lot of people that don't get to grow up in that environment. And I think I'm just so thankful my parents immersed me in that, because it definitely made me who I am as an artist, as a dancer, and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, let's piggyback on that question and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if that was part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
So it's kind of starts, there's a little bit of a backstory to it. But I always set up my goals of shows that I want to get into and like those goals that you want to accomplish as a dancer. But it's back in 2017. That year actually started off not so great for me. It was one of the toughest years of my life. I went through a really horrific breakup, which actually ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned so much from it, but it started off just like gut wrenching. And that year I had already been working for Cirque. I was at Light and Believe, but I had taken a couple years off due to like sickness. And I was like, you know what? Cirque is going to have another open call in Arizona. I really should just go. They know me, but I need to show them. I'm very like in your face. Always remember me. Don't forget me. And I need to show them that, hey, I'm still here and I'm better than ever. So I ran over to Arizona for their general casting call, and I made it to the end. And it was also for me, it was just, I had to do it because in the past when I had to audition for Cirque, I've auditioned 3 times as a blonde and never made it. They just looked past me. And then I cut all my hair off, dyed it red, and they were like, oh, we're going to hire you for Light. But I always felt like I kind of piggybacked on my ex a little bit. Because we were kind of a partnering acrobatic couple, and they didn't see me for who I was as a dancer because I'm not a trickster, I'm a technician. So I would always use like our tricks as a couple to kind of get noticed and to be able to make it to the end of the casting call because of my talents myself. And I had actually Sarah Davison, the casting director for Cirque du Soleil. She was like, wow, that you always get better and better. This is the best I've ever seen you. And it just was such a like, oh my God moment that I can do this on my own. I don't need anyone else. Like I just have to dig deep and believe in myself. So from that, I actually I got considered for Love, but didn't get it. And then in July of that year, 2017, I got an invitation for a private call for Zoomanity. And Zoomanity has always been my dream show. I knew it before I had even seen it. I knew it was like the risque Cirque, and it was just so up my alley, and I just wanted to be a part of it. And when I saw it, I fell in love with it. And it was like, okay, I'm going to get in the show. I'm meant to be in the show. So I got invited to that audition. It was 5 of us, and I made it to the final 2. And it was just, my knees were black and blue. I was drenched in sweat. I remember I broke my watch at one point. I left everything I possibly could on that dance floor. And it came between me and another girl who is gorgeous dancer, beautiful, Latina, curvaceous. And I'm like redhead, fiery, little girl next door, but we're completely opposite. So I was like, it's not going to come down to my dancing. I did everything I could. It's going to come down to a look thing. And I have
Right.
no control over that, which is, it's frustrating as a dancer, but again, you have to learn to like accept it, acknowledge it, and just move on. It's out of your hands. So unfortunately, right then and there, I didn't get offered the position, had a good cry about it. And I was like, you know what? There's something else. I'm not meant to get it right now, which was exactly right. My choreography career started to take off, and I started booking gigs and choreographing this and that. And I ended up being super, super busy. And it was that December, I got a call from Sarah, and she was like, would you be interested? Now, when they say, would you be interested? They just want to know your availability. And I was like, oh my God, I got it. And I was like, no, not yet. You didn't get it just yet. But so I said, yes. Oh my God, I would love it. Like there's an on-call position. Put me in. And then a couple weeks later, I was actually at the Donnie and Marie audition. I had made it to the callback, and I saw on my watch that Cirque was calling. And Cirque, when you're not working for Cirque, they only call you for 2 reasons. If you're interested, to see if you're interested and available for a show, and when you book a show. So I knew, oh my God, I've booked it. I've had to have booked it. But then
Wow.
I'm in the middle of this callback. And so I'm like, oh man, like I still want to make sure I make it to the end of this. But I used all those like emotions and that energy, and just, I put that into my dancing. I made it to the end of that audition. I got in my car. I called back Karina, and she was like, yes, we'd love to offer you the on-call position. And I was just like, oh my God,
Oh,
like
that's
screaming. And
fantastic.
I was in the car with my roommate at the time, and it was just amazing. And my mom's like my 101 supporter, and she's always there for me. She's brutally honest, which I love. She's like one of my best friends, if not my best friend. And we had made a pact that if I were to get like any Cirque show, Love, Zoomanity, she would fly out here. She's still in Florida. She would fly out on my opening night. So I called her up and I was like, hey, So it looks like you're going to have to come out here for Christmas. And she was like, oh my God, like she knew immediately. And December 26th was my first day in Zumanity. And it was just, I just love that show. It's so much fun. It's a dream come true. And I thought, okay, well now I've booked it, so I'm done. And I was like, no, I'm not done yet. And so my next goal in life, I have put myself, I want to get into Hamilton. And once I saw that show, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get into that show. We're going to work to get there. So that's my next like stepping stone in life. But yeah.
I love that. That is such a good story.
Thank you.
So good. All right. Well, let's take a moment to talk about the present.
Yes.
What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And of course, we are amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
It is so different. Right before all this hit, I had a lot of projects coming up, especially like choreographing and directing, and everything's kind of taken the back seat. But with this pandemic happening, what I didn't know was my teaching career is kind of expanded, which is awesome. I've always wanted to try to get out and teach at conventions and go and be a master, teach master classes and be flown out and all that good stuff. And I have lots of connections in New York and LA and all that good stuff. And I had a couple people reach out to me and they're like, hey, would you like to do a virtual master class for our kids in our studio? And I was like, oh my gosh. So I've slowly been making those connections while this whole COVID thing was happening. And they're like, wow, you're a great teacher. Like, let's get you to teach on our summer program. Let's get you to teach here. And so that's slowly evolving. And I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. Like, I didn't think that would happen. So that's taking off more. Now that we're getting back into things, for myself, I'd love to do Broadway. That's like my next step in life. That's where I'm like gearing myself with like singing lessons. And I auditioned for Moulin Rouge back in November, made it to the callbacks for that. And I know like that's something I could get into. So that's kind of like my goal pinpointed in the future for me. But with the entertainment industry, it's so interesting. I know whatever is going to happen, it's going to change. And I've talked to a couple friends around town and I didn't realize how well I think I'm handling it. But a lot of them are freaking out. And I'm like, but we're all in the same boat together. Like whatever's meant to be will be. And unfortunately, yes, shows are probably not going to be, as much as they used to be, but eventually, hopefully, like we'll be back on track of where we used to be. But for now, we just have to take it for what it is. And if it's something, like dancing is something you still want to do, like keep conditioning that craft for when the shows start to re-audition so that you're ready for that and all that stuff. But I definitely know like there's been talks for different things for like even Zumanity. I've heard different things going on, which I don't know what's true and what's not, but it's going to be a new norm we'll have to take regardless in the entertainment field, shows, gigs, all that stuff. But I think we'll get there. Even when you look back at like the recession, everybody wants to be entertained and that's what we do. And so I don't think we're going to fizzle out. I think it's going to pick back up. It's just going to take a slow process.
Fantastic. I love your outlook on that. And I as well am very optimistic about the future. I think it will be some kind of a new normal, but it will certainly be unique in its own way after all of this is past.
Yeah, definitely. And you can't stress about things that are out of your control. And that's why I go back to my quote in the beginning. I've done that and it's not healthy. It's not healthy physically, mentally, like it's just not a good thing to do. So it's like, you know what? You can't do anything about it. So like work on something else, look at it a different way. So
Exactly.
it's something my mom's instilled in me and I'm really appreciative about that.
Well, that's fantastic advice. Well, let's move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I like to call it the Grease Lightning round.
Woo!
I'm going to ask a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
I am. Let's do it.
Perfect. First question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
As weird as it sounds, financial stability, because it takes so much and you want to keep conditioning and taking classes and all that good stuff. But then you also need a job to pay for that. And so if I had $1 million, I would be so committed to it. But that's the one thing. Yeah.
For sure. Second question, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
I work really good with people putting me down. So it's 3 in 1. It's you're only a ballerina. You're never going to make it as a dancer. And my ballet teacher told me when I was 10 years old, if you don't work on your turnout, I'm going to tell them my dogs taught you. And I used all of that
What?
as I switched. I still joke with him to this day about that, but I use all of that as inspiration. And I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong. So.
Yeah, flip that stuff around. Third question, what is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what is something that was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Working for me. I think just my dedication and my consistent hustle and drive. And I love to say that Ain't No Rest for the Wicked is kind of like the theme song to my life, and just keep pushing through it and driving through it and go, go, go. Like that's how I live my life is I hustle. And I think it works for my benefit in the end.
Absolutely. And I think that the entertainment career is unique in the sense that we have these peaks, I guess, if through our careers of, and it might be shows or gigs or markets that you really want to work in. And once you do them, we accomplish that. We feel that sense of accomplishment. But I think that most every professional entertainer that I know hits that peak and goes, all right, what next?
Yeah,
And it's always needing to have that drive and that dedication to continue that journey because you can't just, I guess we're never 100% fulfilled with whatever peak we happen to be on. We always see something greater and something bigger and something that could push us and challenge us more.
totally. And it's that amidst the hardness of it, of like, I know it's going to be a struggle, but I'm going to go for it. And that just shows your true dedication to your craft.
Absolutely. All right. Fourth question. What is the best resource, whether that's a book, a movie, a YouTube video, podcast, a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now?
So I actually, thanks to COVID, I read a book, which my mom laughed when I told her this because I never read. I'm horrible. But I read Patrick Swayze's memoir. It is Time of My Life. And oh my God, every dancer needs to read it, like point blank done. But anyone that's ever wanted to accomplish something in their life. And he is just such an inspiration. Just a little sidetrack is we actually shared the same doctor. And he told me when I broke my foot years ago, he's like, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Patrick Swayze. Maybe you should choose a different career. And I was like, yeah, whatever. But like reading his book and hearing that and seeing that and being like, that's my doctor, and how dedicated he was and how he pushed past so much pain. And to hear about his life with Lisa in New York when they had nothing and they were making furniture to survive, and they would literally put the furniture on the back of their motorcycle and drive it like across town to sell it. And it is so inspiring of just someone who was born to do it and loved what they did. And he tried everything. Like, I didn't know that he was a cowboy, and he got into martial arts, and he played football. And I mean, he literally had his hand in every single pot you possibly could imagine, which is something I really try to do with choreographing and directing and assisting with this audition or this audition. And people make fun of me, but I'm like, no, I want to learn as much as I can and be adapting myself as much as I can and have my hands in those pots. And I really think I read that and I was like, wow, that is so, I wish I read it like years before, because it was just so inspirational and just motivating and comforting, and you feel like you know him as a person. It's really, really a good read.
I love that. I think I'm going to have to go pick that
You
up.
have to. It's so, so good.
Perfect. Well, here's the fifth question. It might be my favorite question. If you had to start your career from scratch, but still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in the entertainment industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or the same?
I would have listened to my chiropractor, Dr. Esposito, back in Florida earlier when he said, you need to condition your body for injuries by doing squats, by doing, weighted exercises. And I was like, no, I'm a ballerina. I don't want to bulk up my legs. But I wish I would have listened to him, because I still get injuries. Even with my shoulder, I condition all the time. It was a freak accident, but it would have made me more body conscious and aware. And I think I could have prevented some things that happened to me. And I also wish I would have listened to my father, who was a singer, who I should have started singing lessons with sooner. I literally just started like a couple years ago, but I just never wanted to sing around him. And I wish I did, because I think I would have been just made myself more adaptable and hireable. And I should have listened to him.
That's great. And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry that you would like to leave with our listeners?
It would be that everybody's path is different, and you are exactly where you're supposed to be, where you're meant to be. You're supposed to learn that lesson right now, even though you think you're supposed to be over somewhere else. No, you're supposed to be exactly where you are. The dance industry is a lot of blood, sweat, tears. You're going to push through it. You're going to have your hard times. You're going to feel completely low and worthless sometimes. But you have to believe in yourself. And if you believe you can do it, you will do it. I have never, like I said earlier, never had anything handed to me. There's a lot of people in this industry that have just lucked out, and that's amazing for them. That's great for them, but that's not Brittni Trippi. Brittni Trippi has had to work for everything because it has to teach her a lesson in some way or another. Like everything I've worked for, it has felt that much more enjoyable and worth it in the end because I've put in so much effort. And it's just made my passion stronger. It's made my drive stronger and harder. And it's tested me so much, but it's made me the person I am. And I'm very grateful for that. So just know that you are where you're supposed to be. And if you truly love something, you can totally, totally accomplish it.
I love that. And I think that is amazing advice for anybody, new or old, into this industry listening to this right now.
Awesome.
All right. Well, let's wrap this baby up. And
Sweet.
that means it is time for you to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
So I'm the worst at promoting myself because I'm just so bad. As much as I am an entertainer and should be like, spotlight on me when it comes to this kind of thing, I'm so bad at it. But you can always follow me on Instagram. It's B_Trippi, TRIPPI. It is private, but I always accept everyone as long as you're not like a weird, creepy person. I will accept you. I post all my teaching schedules. Like I mentioned earlier, I teach at Millennium. I teach heels. Right now the schedule's kind of varying, but I always post whenever I'm teaching or subbing on there, any projects, any auditions that I'm holding or I'm choreographing for. And then also I'm trying to get better at it, but my YouTube page, it's got all my dance classes on there. It's got my reel, my artist reel, my choreography reel, my teaching reel, all that good stuff. I'm on Facebook, but not really. But those are the two. If you want to find me and connect with me and follow me and see what Brittni Trippi is about, head over to that and I'll be there.
Wonderful. Brittni, thank you so much for hopping on and doing this interview today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored and so appreciative that you thought of me. It's been so much fun.
Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode. We have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.